What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Who's Reality Cooking. I'm so excited to have my first ever Top Chef contestant here with me. Rasika from the current season of Top Chef is here with me. How are you?
I'm good, Audrey. How are you? Really happy to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making time in your very busy schedule. I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, what I wanted to do is just kind of get to know you and help the listeners get to know you. So, can you tell me, where your love of cooking came from and how long you've been cooking, both, privately, in your own home and obviously professionally?
Sure. So originally, I'm from Chennai in India. It's in the southern part of India. And I moved here a couple of years ago in 2019, and I started pursuing my career here. But I initially started cooking because of my grandmom, and I did a lot of it in my teenage years. But the love for cooking comes from her, like just growing up and watching her um, be so dedicated to the family to cook for her loved ones. I think that's what inspired me to take it up as a profession. And ever since then, I've just been like, watching Top Chef in when I was a teenager and just like so in love with that hustle of the kitchen and wanting to do that myself and experience that myself. So did that and then moved to the US and everything skyrocketed from there ever since I moved.
That is so awesome. Was there a favorite dish that your grandmother made that, is just so homey and your favorite?
There's so many. So that's a hard question. I think all of the dishes she makes is like it stays with me. And I also cook from that heart that she has. And I try to like showcase that in ways that I can on Top Chef if you're watching the season. Because I try to, my whole cuisine is like taking her cooking and the cooking of my state and kind of like reinventing it in a new way that hasn't been done before. So some of her dishes that I really, really love is probably busy bilabat, which is kind of like a rice and gravy, like kind of like grits, I would say, that is very traditional to the South here. But we put like spices, vegetables, and it's like a rice and vegetable situation that's really tasty. But there's so many dishes of hers.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. Amazing. Well, what were you doing before the show? And were you cooking these types of dishes or were you working in a different type of kitchen?
So I've been cooking a lot of different cuisines before actually realizing that I wanted to like focus on my own cuisine. And I think a lot of chefs go through this. They're like we're all from different parts of the country. I mean, different parts of the world. Sorry. And we want to learn different techniques, like European techniques, Middle Eastern techniques, Japanese, Asian techniques, and we kind of want to hone every single technique that is very essential in the whole world of cooking. So before this, I was actually working in a French restaurant, a Moroccan restaurant, an Italian restaurant for a bit, and kind of like learned these Western techniques that I fell in love with, to be honest. But then I realized that I was missing out on my own country's food, not having cooking it professionally. So I wanted to actually take these techniques that I've learned in other restaurants and kind of like meld it with these flavors from my own country.
I love that. So were you working in a professional kitchen cooking all of these foods or, what was your job that you had to take a break from to be able to go on to Top Chef?
So I was working at Murad. It's a Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco. It's Moroccan, new Moroccan cuisine. And I was the head chef. I actually worked there for 5 years, just building myself from being a line cook to a sous chef. And I was the head chef there for the past 2 years. And that's where I kind of like learned the art of fusing different flavors together. And I subconsciously put a lot of like South Indian influence in the menus there without even realizing it because it just like came from within. But I led a team of, 25, 30 people and I was, changing the menu seasonally. So that's where I learned all of these management skills that really go into leading a restaurant. But, just cooking that kind of food and realizing that I wanted to do the same with my own food. That's when this was right before Top Chef. And then I went on Top Chef, came back, continued my job. And then I took a sabbatical where I left that job to go and travel in my own state and kind of do a research trip where I documented 1,000+ recipes. I hung out with the locals of that state for like a month and a half. And I really, really got closer to my culture, which is all I wanted my entire life, to be honest.
That's amazing. Well, just so that if anybody is, like, wait, where can I find that? And I'll want all of this information at the end as well so we can plug what you're doing. But quickly tell us, where can we find all of these recipes that you worked on, and more information about that trip?
So the recipes of the trip it's still being like documented and reviewed, and it will come out on my website eventually. But these are all recipes that are going to be highlighted in the future restaurant that I'm opening. So I left San Francisco and I've moved to New York now after my sabbatical. And I'm planting roots in New York because of various reasons. I think it has such a huge market for Indian food, and I'm now doing like private events and private dining in New York to get my face out in the market more, and doing pop-ups and collaborations with other chefs. And it's a really exciting period for me because I am taking the risk to jump out of the box and do my own thing and promote my own food, which is all I've ever wanted to do. And it's a huge risk. There's a lot of risk doing that, but I think that I have the platform right now to do that. And I think that we have so much to offer in our cuisine. Every state in India has so much to offer. It's so diverse. It's so different from each other. And I feel like there's a misconception in the West that when it comes to Indian food, it's all like bracketed into one and all boxed into one, like the North Indian food, I would say. But now it's a great time for Indian food where chefs from each of these states are actually coming out and talking about how diverse the country actually is.
That's so great. Well, I cannot wait to see the website. And when it does come out, please let me know so I can definitely put it in the show notes. I can always add it later. um, so considering you've worked in so many different restaurants and so many different types of cuisine, what was it like knowing, finding out you'd be going to Wisconsin? Well, first of all, did you know you'd be going to Wisconsin for the show, or was it kind of kept on the vest until last minute?
It was kept under wraps until everyone else knew about it. Like we knew about it for the first time when it was publicly released. So that was like very it was a short time period, in between like actually going into the competition versus it actually being released. So we didn't know well beforehand.
Okay, so you couldn't do like any studying. Were you able to do, were you able to like jump online and, look at menus or study about the area? Or was it such a short amount of time that it was like, well, I'm going to cook what I'm going to cook?
No, there was a time period where if you had the time, like you could actually like study about it, and that's what I did. Like I knew Top Chef seasons are very formatted according to which state it's in, and they use a lot of like local foods and really want to highlight that in the season. So I definitely did like a fair share of studying of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Madison before the show, and I wanted to at least I'd never been to the Midwest, like being new to the US, like I'm still like understanding the West and the East Coast first. So it was my first time going into like the Midwest and understanding the food culture there. And it's so like amazing. It's so different too. And the different types of cheeses, the beers that they have, bratwurst, the German influence. Like there's so much history behind Wisconsin that I didn't even know about. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. How do I Indianize all of this now?
Oh, I love it. Well, thus far, what I've seen, you're so much fun to watch.
Oh,
I
thank
have to
you.
say that it's just so much fun to watch you, and you're just kind of rolling with it. And the hops were really interesting when you guys had to cook with hops. Can you remind me what dish you did when you guys had to cook with those? Were they raw or were some dried?
Yeah, so the hops challenge, yeah, that came out of nowhere. I mean, we were all expecting, okay, beer is going to be a challenge. And then they throw in hops, right? And that's the beauty about Top Chef. Like, you have to expect the unexpected. They're not going to do the expected at all. So like there was fresh hops and there was dry hops, and there were so many varieties. And like none of us knew any of it. So you're like working with this whole new ingredient that probably I think only Amanda had worked with them before. And all of us were just like, what do we do with this?
Wow, that's so great. Talk about a challenge. I mean, it was a challenge upon inside of a challenge. Well,
Yeah.
since when I was watching that, one of the first questions I had was, what's in the Top Chef pantry? And obviously, I also mean the refrigerators. And is it always the same, or do they kind of change that up between challenges?
They do change it up. I mean, the pantry and the produce section is pretty standard. They have pretty much everything that a chef wants. The Top Chef kitchen is beautiful. Like, first time being on a set like that, I was just like, wow. It's pretty life changing, to be honest. And the meat section and the coal section, and the dairy section, it's all stocked. And every challenge, the proteins probably they cycle through different seafoods and proteins, but they tend to have like a standard set of availability for everyone involved for quick fires. Usually the elimination challenges are done outside or offsite, like it all depends. But it's pretty stocked up.
That's really interesting. And did they give you a tour of that ahead of time, or was it just like, okay, cook?
It's like, okay, cook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I saw one of you was like, oh gosh, where's this? Where's this? Where's this? And everyone else I've interviewed, they're like, no, no, no. They give us a full tour of it ahead of time. So they are really just, trying to get you guys to show your true talents. And I really love that about Top Chef.
Yeah, I mean, even if you get a tour, like you're not aware as to where everything is placed yet, because it's so big. There's like, I mean, you can run like a marathon in the kitchen. It's like it's like an adrenaline rush. You're like, I'm probably like losing weight while I'm doing those, quick fires. You know what I mean? So you need a couple of times to kind of like adjust to your environment. Any chef does. But that's the name of the game. It's a challenge for a reason, and you kind of need to put your best foot forward and use your instincts.
Oh, that's so great. And what I did want to also ask is, did you know any of the contestants beforehand? Did you get there and go, oh hey, how are you doing? Or did you know of them maybe because of social media?
I knew the San Francisco chefs. Well, not too personally. I knew Laura more than I knew David. Laura she's the owner of Delita, and her husband, like both of them had won Star Chefs one of the years, the Star Chef Rising Star Award. And I, had know about both of them and met her husband at the award ceremony in 2022. And they do very similar food to Murad. It's like Middle Eastern Turkish influences. So we had that connection and we knew about each other. David, I actually saw at the same Star Chefs event, so I knew about him and I knew he was a restaurant owner, but I didn't know him personally. But it was like interesting to see familiar faces and like three people from San Francisco. That's crazy.
That's so interesting. And did you guys like really bond over that fact? Or was it more like, oh no, now we've got some competition here?
I mean, there's not really any time to bond from the get go. I think that all of us were just focused on the competition and we just, wanted to have a good first impression in that first challenge. So I think everyone was focused on that. But, there's this knowing looks that, okay, you know each other.
That's really cool. Another thing I just kind of wanted to ask you, for maybe people who haven't tuned in yet. Could you tell me a couple of the highlights, items or moments in the show that you're just so excited to share for the first 3 episodes, or whatever you're allowed to share, of course?
Yeah, of course. I think the moments that were really like blew my mind is when I won certain challenges. I think for me, like coming into the show, like I was the youngest one there with the least amount of experience. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the underdog because everyone, Gene Spirit nominee, finalist. Most people have worked in a Michelin star restaurant, including me, but I still didn't have that 10-year of experience on my resume. I had the 6-year experience, but which is pretty low in in the restaurant industry. Like, so I was like, okay, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to like navigate and see, where I can do my, dishes here and there. But winning the second challenge, with that pretzel dessert, like I'm so glad the risk paid off. I did not expect it. Like you never expect things to work out the way you want it to work out. And the fact that Tom liked it and Kristen liked it, like that's crazy. So it was definitely a highlight. And then winning the quickfire in the third episode, I think that I didn't expect that at all. Like that was a surprise. I literally had cherries and onions and I just tried to do something in 30 minutes, but it worked out.
Oh man, and for anyone listening or watching, so the third episode just came out and I haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet. So tell me, what did you make to win that quickfire challenge with cherries and onions? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so it was a Door County Cherry Challenge for the quick fire, and we had like great guest judges, Carla Hall and Cleo Duvall. Yeah, you should watch the episode.
Oh, I will as soon as we're done here.
Yeah, and it had like you had to pair these Door County cherries with a mystery ingredient that they put behind doors, cute little doors. And I picked Cipollini onions because it was a mystery ingredient. And then I looked at the cherries, I looked at the onions, and I was like, uh, and mind you, these onions were not peeled. So half of my 30 minutes went into prepping these onions.
Gosh.
And I was like a crazy person peeling these onions. But I, wanted to keep the dish very simple. Like the challenge was basically highlight these two ingredients. So I wanted to just highlight the onions and the cherries as best as I could. So I made like a canapé dish where I cooked the cipollini onions in some cherry juice, and I made a a variety of a cherry kind of relish with Berber spice, and I kind of like topped it on top of the cooked cipollini onions, and it was like sweet and it had high acid, which really pops in your mouth. So I kept it very simple, and Carla Hall liked it.
Yay. Oh man, that is just so exciting. I can't wait to watch it. So anybody who has not watched it yet, you need to get on that. um, one question I had was I believe it was episode 1, where you were making an Indian dish with beef. And I get why you were worried about the backlash, but I have to assume there's a lot of people who went, huh? So could you explain, what you meant by that? And has there been backlash? I would assume there's been a lot of, love and support, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. That first challenge, I think that I really wanted to make a good first impression. Pasta is not my wheelhouse. Having cooked Moroccan French food for the past couple of years, I did work at an Italian restaurant for a little bit. But then pasta is like, you need to put in your time with it to actually like, get it out perfect in a challenge like that. So I wanted to make something familiar to me, and I wanted to highlight that first challenge with South Indian food. So I made korkate, which is basically a rice flour based dish that either has a savory or a sweet filling that we make during Ganesh Chaturthi, which is a festival that is devoted to Lord Ganesha, which is the elephant god in India. So why beef is a no-no is because we worship the cow in India. Like we call it Nandi, and it's a very religious animal in the Hindu community. And I did get I did get backlash, which I was expecting, but I did get a lot of love and support because I think cooking is it's a blank page. You also have the history behind it from our ancestors that have, brought all of these dishes to where it is now. But I also feel like you pay homage to these dishes by, really respecting it and kind of like putting your identity on it because you love it that much. And that's what I wanted to do. It wasn't meant to offend anyone, but I felt like putting it on a stage like this in like a stuffed pasta challenge and having it on a global stage like this, like I think, people immediately Google what korkute is, and that's what I want. I want people to, it needs to, people need to be curious about it. And that's what I wanted.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, Did you guys happen to try each other's dishes? And I don't mean as you're cooking, but I'd love to hear that part too. But after you present it to the judges and then you go back and you're like, whew, that's done. Were you guys trying each other's dishes?
There's no time
I
to
didn't think
try each
so.
other's. Like, you try some components, but it's like contestants that want your feedback with the seasoning, and they make you try sauce while the cook is happening. But a fully composed dish, you don't really try your own at the end of the day, like during these challenges, because you conceptualize, if you've made the whole dish before in your restaurant environment before the show, then yes, you know what it tastes like exactly. But you need to also hit a challenge. So there's this new component that's coming into this dish where you kind of need to revolve the dish around the challenge, because in Top Chef, you always need to follow the challenge. So there's actually like no time to taste anyone's composed dish.
Right, right. That is so interesting. I did notice some people trying dishes after the fact, their own, but I get it. It's such a high pace environment. It's just so interesting to watch. What about the team strategy? When you guys were shopping together, I believe it was for the second episode. You guys, it seemed that you had a strategy, and I don't think I noticed it until you guys were actually checking out, where it was almost as if you had held back the unnecessary items, or not unnecessary, but least necessary items. Can you talk a little bit about that and any other strategies that maybe you guys had?
Yes. So team challenges are sorry. Team challenges are especially difficult because you kind of need to split the whole budget between how many ever people are in that team. In this case, there were 7 people. So I think that all of us wanted to shop for our own dishes and our own ingredients, but not overdo it, like just whatever we need. And I think what went through the till first is the important stuff, like the meat, the seafood, the dairy, the eggs, like all of these important things went in first, and things that I needed for the dessert, the flour, and all of that. And then after we see what the budget is after that, we put in the extra garnishes, the extra things that are maybes on the dish. So everyone was on the same page as to what they needed first and then what they needed last. But at the end, that shop went really well because all of us got whatever we wanted.
I think that's really great. And I also noticed that the other team, perhaps it was not as obvious to me, or to others, but it seemed like they were having to remove things after the fact. There was also some talk between the judges that the other team, it didn't seem like it was cohesive across the board. And to anyone from the other team, your food looked delicious and amazing, and I'm definitely not knocking it. But I'm curious, your team, did you guys talk about cohesiveness, or did it just kind of naturally happen?
No, we definitely did talk about cohesiveness. I think that was the important fact that the judges kept hitting on. Like it needs to be progressive, it needs to be cohesive, it needs to be a tasting menu, so small portions. So we kind of like kept all of that in our minds when we talked about it. But we didn't really want to get into each other's dishes and be like, no, you should do this, no, you should do that. We wanted to support each other, and obviously decide like who should go course wise, so that it's good for the diners. So you always need to like think about a tasting menu from the perspective of a diners. Like you have like Savannah went first with the pickles, and then we get the olives, and then Michelle went. So it goes from light and cold to warmer and heavier dishes. So we kept that format, and it's a very simple format that we followed. We didn't want to overcomplicate it.
I think that's so great. And can you touch on your, since you've brought it up twice and now I'm like, man, I'm gonna need a dessert with some with a little bit of salt in it. But can you talk about your dish from this group challenge? And you had mentioned how important the using the pretzels were. And can you share a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so that challenge, when they announced the challenge and bar snacks, like it sounded like such a fun challenge from the get-go. And I just was immediately stuck on pretzels. I don't know why. But I mean, okay, I love snacking on pretzels. That's probably why. But I had, thought of dishes like before the show, and you kind of like, chefs usually keep like an arsenal of dishes that they want to do when the show starts and when the challenges start, that they can kind of like tweak according to the challenge. So I actually had this dessert idea for beer. And I was like, okay, beer bar snack challenge. I'm going to like take this dessert and add pretzel and everything. So I, just wanted to build the pretzel flavor in every layer, because what I got knocked on in the first challenge is that I did not follow the challenge to a T. Like they wanted, more traditional stuffed pasta, said it had too many vegetables in it. So I think that I wanted to follow the challenge. That was my main goal. So I wanted to introduce this pretzel in all its shape and forms as I could, and pair it with honey mustard, because honey mustard pretzels are my favorite. And I wanted to make that sabayon to kind of like go all over this pretzel dessert, so that you have that feeling that you're eating a savory dish, but then it's sweet. And I love things like that. I love quirky components of making dishes. I just love the out of the box challenge that you can do with food, and it really excites me.
That's so great. And you had mentioned that the pretzel aspect was so important to you because of your family. Can you talk on that a little bit for maybe somebody who hasn't watched the show?
Sure. So I was actually born in the US, but I was brought up in India. I was 3 when we moved back, so I didn't really have like an American upbringing. It was like close to grandparents. It was in India. It was very like culture driven. My parents were green card holders at the time, and being a green card holder, you need to go back and forth every 6 months to renew your green card. So they would always get back snacks, chocolates, Doritos, and things that you don't get in India, they would always get from the US for like the whole family. So they'd have a suitcase filled with American snacks. And it would be the most exciting time in my life, because I loved American snacks. So they'd always make sure to get multiple bags of pretzels, because I just love snacking on them. I love the salty dryness that it gives in your mouth. So I think that having that memory, I just like subconsciously got stuck on pretzel with this challenge.
I love it. And I love that you worked it into a dessert. We have one of, and I know these are all over the place, but we have one of those yogurt shops where you can add your own toppings. I always, always, always add pretzels to the top of mine. So it was just this moment of yay for
Sweet
me.
and salty, the sweet and salty, like it just does very cool things on your palate.
I completely agree. I just loved seeing that. Did you feel like, and I know we can only really talk about 3 episodes, and for anyone listening, we've really got to protect Rasika and make sure that we're not asking her questions that are, about episodes we can't talk about. But for the first 3 episodes, do you feel like you've really been able to shine in Wisconsin, to be able to bring your own culinary style and kind of mix it with the ingredients that they're giving you there?
I mean, we're still in the initial stages of the competition. Like, I'm trying as much as I can to kind of do that. I think all of the contestants are. We're all trying to prove that we're meant to be there. But just even getting selected for a competition like this is like a big deal. You know what I mean? And especially for an Indian, like there's probably been like 3 other Indians in the whole history of Top Chef. So it's like you're representing a certain culture as well, which is, no pressure. But yeah, so I think that you're trying to make a path in the initial stages of the competition. You're trying to get the judges' trust as well. Like we're all trying to prove that we cook good food and it's delicious. You know what I mean? My whole goal is to portray Indian dishes that are not really talked about. And I think like so far in the first challenge I did that. In the second challenge, like it's all about versatility as well. Like I want to show that I don't just cook Indian food. I can do desserts. I can do like French food if I need to. I have this whole like arsenal within me, which makes you a good overall top chef in a way.
Absolutely. And it's just so much fun to watch you. And anyone who has not watched the current season of Top Chef, I mean, I'm going to be cheering you on. It's just so much fun to watch you, and you're such a great presence on TV. So if no one's told you that, I'm sure they have, but I would definitely want to tell you that, because it is a pure joy just to watch you. I was curious as to how the show, and I know we're in the early stages, but has the show yet kind of changed your career, your life, or more opportunities coming at you, or is it just kind of a trickle right now?
No, I mean, the show definitely, on a personal level, has, opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I think that that should be the goal of the show, because it really like puts you on a platform where you can develop more confidence. You can really understand what your cooking style is, because you're outside of the umbrella of whatever restaurant you work in, unless you own your own restaurant and that's what you're representing. So I think that Top Chef has done that on a personal level. And also, like, it is opening a lot of doors and opportunities, like things that I can't necessarily talk about on this platform. But there's been a lot of support in general. I think the fact that the South Asian community has been very like vocal about their support towards me, and just yesterday with the last episode, episode 3, I had someone text me on Instagram saying that, oh my God, you made panyaram on Top Chef. And this is like, panyaram was the rice cake that I made. And they're just like, we're rooting for you all the way. Thank you for representing our culture. And, we're sending you all the love and support, and that is my main goal. Like, I want this community to be represented, and I want to know how amazing our food is and how it can meld well with the West and introduce people to these flavors and make them fall in love with it too.
I just love that. And thank you for doing that. Is there, and I know you can't talk about everything that's coming up, but I can guess it's big. Is there anything you can tell us? Or if, somebody in New York is listening and they want to hire you as a private chef, um, how can people find you right now? What are you working on right now that you can talk about?
Sure. So I am going to be doing pop-ups in this through this company called Resident. So they can definitely find me in New York through Resident in the future. And also I will be doing pop-ups in May and June, where I'll be promoting in my social media. So definitely ask people to follow me, Chef Rasika V, on social media. My website is going to be up and running soon, and they can definitely book me out for private events and pop-up dinners through that website. And yeah, so that's what's coming up in the more recent future.
That is so great. It has been just so much fun to chat with you, and thank you so much for making time. Well, thank you so much for making time out of your very busy schedule. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, and a true honor to have you on as our very first Top Chef contestant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Audrey. It was fun talking to you.
Oh, it was such a blast. Everybody, make sure to check out the current season of Top Chef. Can you tell us where we can watch it right now?
We can watch it on Bravo TV. It comes every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find it the next day. It's available on Peacock TV.
Yep. And I'm going to be watching it today on Peacock TV myself. Thank you so much again. I can't wait to keep cheering you on. You're just a blast to talk to. And there is truly something fun about feeling like you kind of know the person a little bit more when you watch them. So anyone who loves any of these shows, be sure to tune into the next episode of Who's Reality Cooking. I assure you, it makes these shows that much more fun to watch. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.